Mastrini's going back to the rotation.
Hello, White Sox fans. Welcome to another edition of the Future Sox podcast. My name is Ian Eskridge. Joining me is Mr. James Fox. How are you, James?
Hello, Ian. What's going on, sir?
Oh, nothing. Just kind of winding down here until SoxFest comes up later this weekend. That's about it. Just watching a little bit of playoff football. That's about it. I mean, there's really not a whole lot else going on. How's things with you?
I think I have a really I don't know if it's bad, but it's probably like a unnormal football take for like a football guy. I don't like the snow games. Like, settle these things on like neutral sites in good environments so I know who's actually good and who's not. Like I don't know. I don't love it.
I mean, after watching the Rams and Eagles earlier, where the Rams just absolutely, just dumped all over the floor in the third and fourth quarter, fumbling the ball and throwing the ball all over the place. Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily disagree, but you know how that goes. And as we watch another turnover in the Ravens Bills game,
Yeah, Lamar Jackson's always been really bad in cold weather, like really bad.
So the boy's jumping in here. He says,
I saw that. Yeah. Does he even know
Jeff
who
Torborg
Torborg is?
passed.
Yeah, that was earlier. The White Sox
Is
tweeted
it Dale
about it.
or Jeff? Jeff?
No, Jeff.
Yeah.
Jeff.
I say Dale? Really?
No.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
Yeah, he was 83. Passed away this morning in Westfield, New Jersey. Yeah, he was 1990 AL Manager of the Year after guiding the Sox to a 94-68 record that season. So,
Yep.
I was like 5 or 6. So, can't say I remember a ton of Jeff Torborg, but my dad always speaks fondly of him. I don't know.
No comment.
Yeah.
Just start off here really quick with a couple of questions. It was asked by Max. Do we have any reason why Martin Perez has not been official yet?
No. I mean, my guess is he's just like not in town, and they don't tweet it until like the contract is signed and the physicals passed. Generally, I mean, it is kind of weird. Like I look at the language on it because we did this same thing with Rojas, and they tweeted Rojas's deal as agreed to terms, I believe, which they don't always do. Like sometimes they'll say like the White Sox have signed, because then that means like it's done, like instead of agreed to terms, which like isn't necessarily. Because obviously like Martin Perez decides to sign, his agent leaks it to the media, and then it's like out there, right? But it's like not official. And that's like we still don't know what that 40-man move is.
Yeah, still waiting on that. I mean, we kind of took a guess that maybe it might be Schulten's since he's kind of laid up at the moment, and there's not really a whole lot he can do anyway. So, yeah. I mean, that might be it, but
yeah, I would say it's likely him or their like least favorite or the one who they think is expendable out of like some of these recent like bullpen waiver claim type guys, like, I mean, they gave Penn Murphy money and ARB, so I'm guessing it's not him. They tendered Justin Anderson, but I mean, if it's like a Ron Marinaccio or somebody, like, I guess I wouldn't be terribly surprised, but I would think it would be somebody who they think they could get through.
Yeah. So there's another question attached to this. Should we expect any more moves? I would guess so.
Oh, I mean, there's so many free agents, and like, I'm not going to like come out and say that they're, going to sign like 2 more Perez level, like, I don't know if they're going to spend like $5 million on a guy here, $5 million on a guy here, but I think there's some guys with expectations that end up taking Tommy Pham type deals because I think we're seeing how this is going right now for those type of guys. It's not great. And I think Getz will be all about, just like trying to create as much value as he can. So yeah, I would say more veteran moves, NRIs are coming. I don't know that they'll make any trades, but who knows?
I mean, that's kind of one of those ones where you can't really predict trades, like that's why the trade deadline's so difficult. I mean, who people, most of the time, who the team intends on trading. That doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to get traded. So, I mean, that's so hard to predict. So,
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, because that's what I mean. Like, I mean, outfielder goes down and Luis Robert gets traded or something. Like I guess I wouldn't be terribly surprised. I kind of feel like he's going to be on the team. I mean, I know we've kind of talked a lot about Davis Martin. I don't know who else it would be though at this point. So.
Yep, that is a good question. So there was a question from Alec here. Do we have any leftover international money? What do we got? Like like 700,000 or
My
something
guess
like
is
that?
$1 million. There's like a couple that are on account. I mean, I think they're right around like 0.4 ish, 1.5 ish right now. But I think there's a couple of unaccounted like signings that are coming that are like low dollar ones, and there's a couple that were announced that we don't have dollar figures for. So I think $1 million is safe. Safe to say they got $1 million. There was a showcase Friday for a Cuban righty, Christian Riga. I don't know a ton about him. I just know that he's available, and the White Sox were one of the teams that's there. And I do think it's interesting, like for anybody that read the article I wrote just with some David Keller quotes and whatnot, he was like pretty upfront about the fact that they expect to add to this class. Maybe like, with guys that they already have deals with or elsewhere. I don't know if the Sasaki thing took a turn that stopped that, because like originally, like, so the Padres apparently were gonna give Roki Sasaki, they were gonna max out their pool. So they were gonna go to 10 million and trade for money, right? Which would have freed up their entire class. That did not happen. And the Dodgers already lost the 3 guys that they're gonna lose. So there's really not anybody out in limbo right now, necessarily, that we know of. Now, there's 11 months to go in this thing.
They lost
So
3?
they did. They lost the guy the White Sox signed. The original
Pirates
guy
guy.
went to Pirates, and then there was another outfielder that the Twins signed like a couple of days after all of that happened.
I missed that one.
But then there are a few like low dollar ones. They just signed all those guys still with Roki with the deals that they made. So I think the Toronto part's interesting. We don't have to get into that part, but we can.
Might as well.
I don't know what
hilarious.
I don't know what they're doing. Like I don't understand. Because now, like, so here's the thing, right? Like, you take on that awful deal for a guy who like should be an NRI in Miles Straw, and then you get Sasaki. Awesome, right? Like, but you've taken on Miles Straw, you didn't get Sasaki, and now you have $2 million in bonus pool space, and there's nobody left to sign. So, I mean, that money, I guess, in theory, could be reallocated, right? Like, somebody pops late. That's good. That's okay. Maybe somebody has a birthday and you try to sneak somebody into this. It's
always a
Cuban.
Usually, it's always like a Cuban on like the U20 team. That's
or like
finally coming available.
Yeah, or like occasionally, like the year that the White Sox traded for Aldrin Bautista, the Dodgers used that money on like a Korean righty.
Mm-hmm.
So like occasionally stuff happens, but I mean, there's like nobody left. I don't know what Toronto's doing. Like, it's very strange.
Yeah,
because because I mean, like the Dodgers waited, they did it after they got the commitment, and then they did it instead of like doing it all up front and then not getting the guy.
As far as the IL goes with Jesse Schultens, I mean, I don't see why they couldn't do that. They could probably drop him on the 60-day IL as soon as it goes live again.
Can you do 60 in spring training? I don't know that you can.
That's a good question. I don't know like when the cutoff day is for when it starts again.
Okay, I don't think you
know that leading up to the Rule 5 that you can't have anybody on the 60-day IL. They have to go on the active.
Well, I don't think they can go 60 until the season. The thing with Jesse Schultens is like, I mean, they're kind of doing him a favor right now. Like he's gonna revert back. Like nobody's gonna claim him. So, like if they DFA him, he'll just clear waivers most likely and go to Charlotte and keep rehabbing like he is. He just won't have a 40-man spot. So, and he's clearly the most obvious name.
That was my thinking. So I figured we'd probably move into the international class here. To start, you dropped a piece on FutureSox.net on the international market. White Sox have now officially, I think, what is it, 16 guys?
16 they've announced, yeah.
Yeah, so you got 6 right-handed pitchers and 10 position players.
Yeah.
Not really anything super crazy new, but you know.
No, nothing earth shattering. You could tell that Keller didn't know a ton about Alejandro Cruz. It's definitely a Marco Patti signing. The one thing that's different about it is he is like a, like a projectable, like defender, type with a hit tool that's not just one of these like future first basemen. Um, so that part's cool. Keller was interesting. He seemed very excited about just like the pitching class as a whole. I know they like this Yobel Rodriguez that they signed out of Cuba as well. There's a couple other $300,000 pitchers. And just, some of the stuff that he was talking about is like fascinating, but it's also like really just eye opening as to like how far behind they are. I don't know how much you read or listened to. I'm sure you listened to it
Yep,
too, right?
I did.
Like when he's talking about like they have video cameras for the first time, like what are we doing?
Well, I
Like
think it's the TrackMan is that they just got the
yeah,
mobile
so
TrackMan.
right. So then you can just set it up at a field in the Dominican Republic, right? And he
Yeah, I
also
mean,
said that they
I
got
have
like
to assume they had video
well,
cameras.
I think the way he said that it was something that we didn't have access to before, like in this department. So I don't
Mm.
know if like Marco Patti was just like going around and just like watching kids with his eyes, like Kenny Williams style, and signing dudes, but
Etching it on a stone
oh my
tablet
god,
with
it
a hammer
it
and
kind of
chisel.
seems like it. Yeah, I mean, I just like the things Keller's saying. Like, I don't know that they're gonna necessarily sign good players, but the fact that you're trying to mix all the different departments together and you're like using data and pooling your resources. What's your favorite word? What's the word they're using?
Oh,
Yeah, well, when you think of it, you can tell me.
yeah,
You tell me. Yeah,
I'll bring it up in
yeah,
a second.
yeah. So, but I mean, it's like it's good. He understands. Like he says, we want to be where the talent is, and that means the Dominican Republic, which they've notoriously like kind of fallen behind. So I do think the international market will be a point of emphasis for them going forward. Transitions are very tough because like he literally just took over in September. And the signing class is in January, and you had a bunch of dudes signed, and like you don't really like to cancel all those deals, especially when you don't have anybody else to sign. It's just like kind of the nature of these periods. So, I mean, it looks like it's probably going to be a full class, 20 some players. The thing that's interesting about that, they didn't bring many people stateside for Instruct. So, like their international class last year was not great. Yoiker Fajardo was probably the best pitcher, and they traded him, and he was stateside. And then the younger Jerdrick Profar, he will be in Arizona. And I
And the
think
other pitcher, Luis Reyes.
yeah, he was from the year before. So,
Oh,
but
okay,
but he's
gotcha.
in Arizona. Yeah. So like nobody from last year's class, like the big Eduardo Herrera was terrible. So there's a lot of guys repeating the DSL, but you've just added 10 position players to the mix down there. So, and if you keep guys in the DSL, you don't have to count them against your roster limits too. So, it's fine. It sounds like the Dominican Academy will be done at some point in 2026, which should be helpful. But I do think, this international market, they understand. Yeah, Rudis Diaz, he's one of the guys that's stateside, I believe. Alec asked about him. So I just think it's going to be like a point of emphasis, and they'll start using the international market more than they have, thankfully.
So the term that we were looking for is leveraging
That's
other
right.
departments. Love that. Love that term.
Yeah, they're
Um,
leveraging all the. I mean, but the thing is, they've never done this before. I can't you just like picture all these siloed departments now under Kenny? Like it's just, and when you see these moves happen in hindsight, it all makes perfect sense now. Like these things just like weren't discussed. It's like, oh, that's the analytics people's problem. It's like, oh, you didn't talk to him beforehand? No. Oh, okay, great. This isn't going to work. And it just like kind of seems like the entire organization was like that. So I don't know. Like I just, I liked hearing David Keller speak. I think he had nice things to say. The write-ups on the site. James Fegan did a good job over Sox Machine too, kind of with some thoughts on it. But um, just it seems like he's done this before, but he's really not going to be able to put his mark on the org for a couple of signing classes, probably.
yeah, that is the unfortunate bit about the international class is even if you swap out, you know, the head of the department, you still have classes that are in place, and we're kind of just unless you renege on those agreements, which you don't want to do because you don't want to make all the
Right.
the Buscones unhappy with you.
Yeah.
You pretty much just have to eat it, and stick with these guys.
Well,
Plus,
I
the other
guess.
guys aren't available.
Well, I guess in theory you could go poach somebody and pay more, but it's really hard to get access to these guys. Like we talked about that. Like, you know, so I don't know if you noticed, like a couple of these Padres guys, they got bigger bonuses than were originally reported once Roki went elsewhere. So there was like a really promising lefty pitcher. Oh God, I think out of the Dominican Republic. And he was, I think, one of the guys that the White Sox had their eye on if he could get free. And he was supposed to be like 500K, and he signed for $1 million with the Padres. Same team, but he held back for 2 days and then signed for 500K more. I think there was like a couple of things like that because they're like, well, we have all this money now. I guess we'll just give it to guys that we already agreed with. But yeah, they're getting somewhat bigger deals. And that happens because you make a deal with a kid when he's 13, you're projecting a body a certain way for $2 million. The body goes the bad way. You're still giving him $2 million, but you wouldn't be if you were making the decision like in real time, essentially. So then these things happen, right? So you just have to hope that you hit on a guy that you signed for 300K and he turns into a superstar, right? It's kind of just like the way that this works. It's crazy.
Yeah, and that's the same reason why when you look at the MLB draft, it's like no matter how much projection you look at with these guys, no matter what their numbers were elsewhere, you could have a guy that just kind of pops for unknown reasons and you just get lucky.
Yeah, no, a lot of it. I mean, look, like some of the stuff that like the Brewers have done. I mean, some of those guys signed for, who's the like their superstar, right? He signed for like nothing. I mean, that's like, he was not expected to, that was not a $5 million signing. I mean, there were rumors the guy that the Cubs just took, or the guy, one of the shortstops they signed, his like body is like backed up or something, and he's like not worth the 2.5 that they promised him. So who knows? I don't know.
Yeah, that's always the thing too, is that when you sign a guy when they're 14 years old, if their body completely changes within the next 2 years and it's time for your deal to be up, what do? You just have to eat it. So
Yeah.
I just wanted to bring up this thing, something that we were talking about off air right before we hopped on here. Um, there was a question about unlimited innings with Noah Schultz coming into this next season. And, per the conversation with Zaleski that we saw,
Yes.
it was about 110 innings or so.
Yeah, so something like a little bit. I don't know. I was taken a little bit, or I was caught a little bit off guard by it. So James Fegan again, over at Sox Machine, he interviewed Matt Zaleski, who's the White Sox pitching coordinator. Got into like a lot of pitchers and workloads, that sort of thing. Talked about Schultz and Smith, but he had Schultz like the primary goal, getting him on like a 5-day rotation instead of the week thing that he was doing last year. So he threw like 92 innings last year, something like that.
Yeah.
And they said basically the goal for him would be 110, which doesn't really add up if he's starting every 5 days and trying to make 5 inning starts. Like I would think it would be more innings than that. But it definitely seems like they're going to be careful with him, but they're going to try to get him into like a regular workload. I don't think we're going to get a ton into like affiliates tonight, but that tells me that I think he's probably going back to Birmingham, in my opinion.
That was my guess, is that that's where he'd start off. I didn't think that they would immediately bump him to AAA because I think that they probably would like to have him at least comfortable with the talent level that he's seeing. So if you want him to work deeper into games, the last thing you want to do is dip him into journeyman MLB players that are going to sit there and foul the ball off all the
That's
time.
true, and I do think they like using the promotions too as like a positive thing. Like start him whatever, he makes like 6 starts and it's like, hey, Noah Schultz has been promoted to AAA like right before this or whatever. I think they like kind of doing that.
Yeah, and we've heard from a few different places that we've got what Noah Schultz, Hagen Smith, Mason Adams are going to be in camp.
Yeah, they'll be in big league camp. The one question that I get frequently is like so anybody that's on the 40 man is in big league camp. Right. So there's like no need, like when you look at the top 30 prospects list, like on our site or at Pipeline or whatever, and you're like, oh, this guy wasn't announced as an NRI. Like an example of that would be what, like um Nistrini or like Jake Eater, they're not going to be announced as non-roster invites because they're on the 40 man. So it's everybody on the 40 man plus all these like veteran type guys that you're signing, right? Like a Justin Dunn that they signed, plus all your own prospects that aren't on the 40 man that you want to give some run to in big league camp. So Adams, Schultz, and Hagen for sure. I don't know about anybody else, but I'm sure there's probably a few others. Definitely some bullpen guys like um, Addison Coffee, like guys like that. AHT, my guess is those guys are all in big league camp.
Yeah, and we got less than a month right now until pitchers and catchers report, so some of that stuff's going to start leaking here.
I bet we get NRIs by the weekend. Like we'll be talking about those at the bar at SoxFest Live. So
possibly so, and
while Len Casper's band's playing.
I was going to say we're going to talk about that in a little while. So moving along from the international stuff, some interesting stuff popped out this week, which is it's not new, a new development, but it is new news. It was revealed that the Ishbia brothers, who are looking into buying the Minnesota Twins, apparently bought 5%, non-controlling, just a passive deal, but they bought 5% of the White Sox in 2021.
Yeah. Not enough.
So not clearly not enough, and it's not controlling, so it really doesn't matter anyway. But if you're looking at it, in order for them to be able to purchase the Twins, they have to get themselves away from that 5% of the White Sox. So that's like an extra added wrinkle into the whole thing. If you guys have not looked into the brothers that are doing that, they're mortgage guys, and they own the Phoenix Suns. They own the WNBA Phoenix team, and then I think like the Nashville soccer team. I think that's what it is.
That sounds right. Yeah, I'm very jealous of the Twins, and it pisses me off. Because these guys are going to buy the team. Like these guys are local and could buy this team. No, God, no, not even close. Like, somebody asked if I could buy 20%. No. If I was a billionaire, though, I'd operate like Steve Cohen. That's what we would do. It's for the people. This is a public service. But no, I mean, I would love for the Ishbia brothers to own the White Sox, but the Jerry Reinsdorf is never selling, and he's gonna live forever. So, it is what it is.
Yeah, it's that's a one of those things. Obviously, we have no control over, and we're just kind of sitting here waiting for the other shoe to drop to see what ends up happening.
They were when the story came out about Reinsdorf's sons buying the team, that's when they got their like shares, because the Reinsdorf sons went in and they bought out like a bunch of, I don't know if it were like people that died, but it was like people that were getting closer to like death, and they just so, and I think what that does is like then when you go to sell the team, the Reinsdorf family has more of the shares. The sons were never gonna like take over. They don't have any interest in that. So, I mean, the plan was always like whenever Jerry passes, like they'll sell it. But I think if they're buying out minority partners, they'll get more at the end, basically.
Yeah. So Max asks if we think Braden Montgomery is in big league camps. I
don't
highly
think so.
doubt it.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I think the guys that are like in limbo that we don't know about, like if you heard about a Grant Taylor, I wouldn't be totally surprised by that just for like a couple of weeks. Peyton Paulette, but I don't think anybody that's like an A-ball really.
My thoughts as well. So there were some acquisitions in the past week. Not anything like earth moving in the in any sense of the word.
Yeah.
But Jonathan Heasley, right-handed relief pitcher, was signed. I have where is it? Where did I put it? There it is. All right. So here's his profile from Baseball Savant. Um, extra, there's a little bit of extra rise on his fastball. The slider and the sweeper look pretty much average or below average, really. Not a whole lot of downward profile on his slider. But you do see pretty good vertical drop on his curveball. So that's interesting. His fastball is only averaging 93 miles an hour, so nothing crazy there. Um, I would imagine that we're probably looking just at a Charlotte arm here. I would think. Your thoughts on that signing?
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm fine with. Look, I'm never against minor league signings. How many innings did he throw in the big leagues last year? Do you know offhand?
I do not. I
And
forget.
he was a tread guy, right? Heasley.
Uh, I don't know,
He
to
was
be
one of
honest
the
with you.
workout play. Like I saw Brewster post some of these guys. I know he's pitched for the Royals recently.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my guess is like he would require a 40-man move. They have a lot of guys. I would think he's probably in Charlotte to start the year, but I would also guess that he probably pitches in the big leagues at some point.
Yeah, so he did 30 innings in AAA for the Norfolk Tides, and then he only
Okay.
did 5 for the Orioles. So I mean,
Okay. Yeah.
nothing crazy. Obviously, there's not a whole lot of mileage on his arm. No big deal. It's just kind of, I think it's one of those ones that there's probably some sort of pitch profile that they really like, and some way that they see that they can improve him. We'll see what that ends up being, and what the end up, what that product ends up looking like at the end.
Yeah.
So one of the other pickups was Joe Perez, former Astros t- sort of top prospect.
As
He
a
was, I think
hitter,
he was,
right? Yeah.
yeah, as an outfielder, he was, I think, ranked 14th. Uh, he only ended up hitting about 250 for his career in the minors, and so they dropped him. But now he's coming back and trying to be a pitcher. I mean, I don't know what. I do know that he did hit 98 miles an hour when he did pitch. But what that ends up profiling as, as a relief pitcher, I would assume what that's going to end up looking like, I don't know.
Yeah. I know. I don't really know. Um, like where he's. Is it even is it even Charlotte or no? Or is it
I
like
wouldn't
lower than that?
imagine so.
No, I didn't. I don't think so. It's like
Yeah, I mean, because like you think back to like Chase Krogman or something like that.
yeah, same
When
type of thing. You go right back down the totem pole. Yeah, like you're back in Kannapolis or whatever
exactly
pitching.
he's
Yeah.
gonna, it's entirely possible that he's throwing for the Cannonballers. Who knows?
Right.
So I don't know. We'll see what ends up happening there. The other one was, I do know he was a workout guy. He was with this performance place called Prime, and his name's DJ Snelten. You'll find, if you go on Twitter, there is footage of one pitch, which, it's 100.4 miles an hour. So that part is impressive. The guy throws hard. Um, he pitched for the Orioles, Rays, Cubs, and Yankees systems, and then he was out of baseball for, uh, at least out of American baseball. He was pitching in Mexico for a few years, and now he's back. I don't know. He was drafted in 2013 by the Giants out of Minnesota, and he's a massive dude. He's like 6'6", like 250 pounds. Um, but he throws hard. But if you disappear for that long, odds are that the command's probably not that great, or secondary pitches is lacking somewhere. So, but when you throw 100.4 miles an hour, you get a bunch of looks, regardless.
Yeah, and the like the videos were interesting. He was throwing really hard. Like, I don't know if he throws any strikes or whatever, but yeah, that's another guy who he'll be in the system somewhere throwing out of one of the minor league bullpens.
Yeah, almost definitely. He'll just be somewhere getting some run. They'll be working on some secondary pitches with him, trying to rework his shapes, and we'll see what ends up coming of that. I don't know what that will be, but we shall see. Let's
Yep,
see.
for
Omar
sure.
Narvaez was with Anthony Santander today. Oh,
Oh boy. There's
I mean, that's as good as a
there's
signing to me.
there's no way the White Sox are giving up the first pick in the second round to sign Anthony Santander. So it's not
No
gonna
shot.
happen. Not gonna happen. Yeah, I think he might be the one. I think he might be the guy that ultimately signs with Toronto. Like they can't get anybody to take their money. He might.
So I watched video of this guy that my son brings up here. Guy who throws a 90-mile-an-hour knuckleball from tread. Did you happen to see any of that video at all?
I did. Yeah. Did he
That
sign?
thing
Who did he
is
sign with? Anybody?
the Tigers.
Tigers. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, not that he's going to end up in the major leagues, but that thing is just gross.
Yeah.
Let's see here.
Yeah. The Sox always go to those like tryout things though. So.
And I think they should. I mean, we haven't gotten anything super amazing out of it yet. But there are some guys that have been in the White Sox system that have definitely benefited from going to tread and places like that. Elaine Ramsey, Declan Cronin.
And Cronin's one of the guys they gave up on, who's a pretty good reliever.
I was not happy with that.
Yeah.
So do you want to move into the staff movements here? We
can do that, and then we can answer some of these questions if we need to, like along the way. But I don't know. Max asked something about Moncada signing soon, and then he put a question mark next. So I thought he was saying Moncada was signing, but it looks like he's asking. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure he'll have a deal for spring training somewhere. Like there's teams he makes sense for. But I know that what it was reported that the Cubs are on to back end bullpen guys and bench guys. I think Moncada's a fit there. And it just came out that they offered Tanner Scott 4 years and $66 million before he took the Dodgers deal. So they should have some money to spend theoretically.
A seat at the table.
Yeah. Right. I don't know. That's kind of a lot. I mean, he's good, but like, I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of big money bullpen deals like that.
It seemed like an overpay, but I'm just a guy here doing a podcast, so what do I know? But it did seem like they paid him a little bit too much.
Yeah, it's like 16.5 a year, I think. Yeah.
Is it 16.5? I thought it was like 18. So. It's like 3.
Oh no, well that's
4
well
years,
the Cubs
72?
offered 16.5.
Oh, right.
66 over 4. Yeah.
Yes, there was Aram Layton, our friend over at Just Baseball, said that the Red Sox, Cubs, what was that? The Red Sox, Cubs, and Angels or something like that, were like the all-stars for looking to sign guys. Pretty funny.
Yeah, they always release like that they like the deal always comes out. Yeah.
The Kings of Interest, that's what it was.
Yeah, Kings of Interest.
All right, so moving along here. So this week, the Chicago White Sox announced their player dev staff. So we finally get a title for Phil Nevin, special assistant to player development. Now, what that actually entails, I don't really 100% know, but you got that name and Ryan Fuller on the front office guys. Any thoughts?
No, nothing totally. I mean, I think what they kind of like in the press release, it kind of said a little bit more about what Phil Nevin's going to do, like just a little bit, I feel like. So I just think he's going to, I don't know. I mean, I think Tony was doing some of this stuff. Maybe he's doing the Tony stuff, where he's just going to go hang out in Birmingham for a week and talk to people and report back to Chris Getz. I do think like so Luis Silverio, his title has changed. So he's like the assistant international director, and then he does player development in Latin America. So he's always done that second part. But they did not have an assistant director before. It kind of does seem like, and I think we talked about this when David Keller was hired. Like, I don't know if anybody knows or listen, like David Keller is just like a Caucasian white man, which is fine, but sometimes it's uncommon for the international director, obviously. So you do need, Spanish speakers on your staff in prominent roles, like especially when they're working in the Dominican Republic.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things where that can't help it can't hurt to have Spanish speaking born people doing those roles.
Yeah.
All right, so moving along. Instructors and rovers. Not really any movement here at all that I can see.
No, there's no changes under Janish, right? These are his guys basically from last year.
Yeah, I don't know who Zubin is. Never seen that name
No, and then
before.
is the Ethan Bain position a new position?
Sure seems that way.
Player development analyst. Um, so it's just going to be a R&D data spot, which they don't have enough of, obviously. But
Yeah, I mean, I know that
so both of
there's
those
there.
spots are new. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but other than that, like all these guys have been around. Like Newman's
Hashimoto
been
was there
around.
last year, right? He was the
He was here
biomechanics.
last
Yeah.
year.
Okay.
Zinter was here last year. Danny Santine's been here for years now. He was with
Mhm.
Barquette earlier.
Yeah.
Julio Mosquera has been the catching coordinator for a long time.
Again, that's the
J.R.
same thing
Purdue's been
for
around.
Santine is a Spanish speaker, I'm assuming. So just like having the assistant hitting director be a Spanish speaker makes sense.
Yep. So here's where we start to see some movement. Sergio Santos obviously promoted from Double A. Let's see, we got Scott Aldred, the new pitching coach here. We talked about him before.
There was a question about that too, and I don't really know the answer, but I don't know if you saw it.
I
Like
did
somebody
not know.
asked if asked if Lichtenstein was like a firing. We don't know that, but I don't know. Like maybe he'll turn up elsewhere. Scott Aldred though, it's weird. Like I feel like I don't know what he's like. Have you looked at his bio? Like it said everything he's been doing. I feel like he hasn't coached in like 8 years, something like that.
Yeah, so I think it's been since 2020, I think, or 2019 that he's been out. He was with the Scranton Wilkes-Barre Rail Riders, I think, the Yankee system.
Yeah.
And he was their pitching coach, and he just kind of dropped out. I have to assume that he was probably working at some sort of a performance academy or something somewhere.
I wonder if he has ties to Phil Nevin then, in some capacity, because they were both
possible.
Yankees. They both worked in the Yankee development system. So
yeah, as far as RC Lichten, I haven't seen RC Lichtenstein anywhere in the org, and he's not listed as being in Arizona, which I mean,
I guess
this has happened
moved
before,
on or
but
they replaced him. We just don't know.
Yeah, because I mean, but again, it could be one of those things where I didn't look at the org chart on WhiteSox.com, so it could be possible that he pops up somewhere else, kind of like Todd Steverson. He was just coaching the Glendale Desert Dogs this fall, and I had no idea he was even still with the org. So
I am really surprised that Steverson's around without Kenny.
Yeah, it's
it's kind of surprising to me.
Yes. So Jim Ricken gets moved up from Winston-Salem, which I kind of personally find kind of weird why they moved Ricken in with Sergio Santos when they moved a bunch of the other guys to Birmingham, which we're going to move here and there in a second. And I'm actually kind of surprised that they didn't promote Nicky Delmonico, because seems like the guys do like him a lot, and he's been pretty good at the job from what I've seen.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I thought Ricken, not that it was a demotion, right? But I thought he had a lot of experience last year. Like, I guess I just I didn't think he was going to be in high A last year. I thought he'd be somewhere higher than that. So maybe that was part of it. Like, hey, go to the dash this year and then we'll see what we can do. Because he had a lot of experience. I mean, he was the Reds minor league hitting coordinator for a while.
Yep.
So AAA hitting coach probably makes some sense.
Yep. Carson Wooten comes up from AA. They move him up to Charlotte. I don't really know exactly how much to really look into the trainers moving around. But that's his new home. So
yeah, I mean, you could do worse. I mean, living in Charlotte's not too bad. So
No, yeah, it's a nice place to be. So Guillermo Quiroz and John Kovalik move up from Winston-Salem into Birmingham. Nicky Delmonico stays put. Daniel Milwee, former White Sox drafted catcher. He was the bench coach in Canny last year. Now he's the bench coach in Birmingham. And then AJ Smith got bumped up from Winston-Salem.
Yeah, Daniel Milwee was a farmhand. Like he was always like destined to be coaching at some point, though.
Yeah, he kind apparently he just kind of had that look about him, I guess.
Well, they did what? Like Jershel. I mean, Jershely and Zaleski were the same way. Like they were players
Blake
and
Hickman
then
as
stayed.
well, yeah.
Yeah. They just stayed as part of the coaching staff.
Yep. Moving along to Winston-Salem, that was like one of the big ones here is that you've got Pat, both of the Pats. You've got Pat Leland and Pat Listash. Pat Listash moves down from Charlotte to be the bench coach for Pat Leland. I love that move, especially for Pat Leland. To me, that's a phenomenal guy to get on the bench.
Yeah, this Winston-Salem staff is really good, and you can tell where the White Sox think that their prospects are going to be, at least initially. I think the two best affiliates are going to be Charlotte and Winston-Salem. There's a lot of talent in Winston-Salem, but there's also like going to be more like once people come up from Kannapolis. So I think having like a good coaching staff there is pretty interesting. So, Listash is a veteran. Cam Seitzer was the AAA hitting coach. So, they're definitely placing a priority in high A Winston-Salem.
Yeah, and there's they poached the trainer there, Austin Smith. They poached him out of the Brave system. So that to me is interesting. It's again one of those things where you try and poach people from clubs that seem to be successful at one thing, and for the most part, other than Ronald Acuna Jr., they've been pretty good health wise. So, moving along to Kannapolis, this is one of the ones I texted you right away as soon as I saw this. Chad Pinder, long time Oakland utility guy, try hard, just plays with his hair on fire guy, is the new manager in Kannapolis. You have thoughts on that?
Yeah, him sitting around with Getz and Barfield and Yanish, and he fits right in. It's like a bunch of utility guys running the White Sox. It's pretty funny. I know you saw like the tweet that I had, like when you texted me Chad Pinder, and right away I thought he was a non-roster invite. I didn't realize he was done playing. So I was like, oh, Ian means he's a manager, because we had kind of talked about it, like, hey, they're gonna hire a new manager somewhere. Like, where's it gonna be? Like, you know what I mean, off air. So then you texted me, obviously, like telling me that he was the manager in Kannapolis, and right away I was like, oh my god, they signed Chad Pinder. Like, he's gonna start at shortstop. Like, I was like, yeah,
he could have.
Yeah, right.
So I don't really know anything about Tilly DeLeon. I have no idea where Tilly is coming from.
Yeah.
Darius Day, he was there. Jacob Doris is coming from the ACL. He was the White Sox Arizona pitching coach in the complex league. So that's something, I suppose. I don't really know too much about him.
Gets a stateside promotion or full season. That's good.
Yeah, full season. Yep.
And there's one really interesting one in Arizona, obviously.
Yeah. So here we go. So Tyler Coolbaugh, we were wondering where he was going to end up, what he was going to be doing. Here we have our answer. He is going to be the White Sox ACL dev coach.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, and it makes a lot of sense. He's like got a hitting background, right? I think this is another one of those things where Gerardo Olivares is there. There's going to be a ton of DSL guys that filter their way there. So again, Spanish-speaking hitting coach, but you also have Tyler Coolbaugh there, I think, with a background in hitting as the development coach. I'm not really familiar with Rob Hardy. Do you know that one?
I do not know.
Yeah.
I think I looked him up like a week and a half ago or something, and I don't remember.
Yeah. So then there is also like Mike Gellinger, who's just an org soldier, obviously, who's just been all over the place. I mean, Mike Gellinger used to work closely with Paul Konerko, like when Paul Konerko was on the team, and they'd like watch video together of Paulie's swing and stuff. And Gellinger obviously came up last year after the Pedro Grifol firing. My guess is he just lives in Arizona and wants to be there if it's up to him at this point. So, which that's fine. He's put in a lot of time. So you want to be in Arizona, knock your socks off, probably.
Yeah. Just going to move to the last one. There's not really anything for pretty much anybody on this page, but I'm going to throw it up there just just in case they happen to be watching. They can feel good that we did mention them. Here is the DR staff. I don't really know anything about any of these guys, really. And maybe we could reach out to Aaron Santana or something.
Well,
And
so I
find out
know that
something
they're
about these guys.
so I know like the manager is Anthony Nunez, but there's all these different staffers. I'm pretty sure the manager of the complex, Wellington Morobel, is new. I don't recognize that name. And this is a bigger staff than normal, so I think this is part of the change down there, right? Is that there's just like a lot more people. Jose Brito has been around as the pitching coach. They have an assistant pitching coach in Stomy Pimentel. So yeah, I mean, there's just all sorts of names. Ruben
Great names
Benavides.
too,
Ruben
like
Benavides
Rigoberto.
was a former farmhand of theirs, so he's back as a education assistant. So my guess is he's working with Aaron. Like I said, we could reach out and ask her and kind of see. So yeah, somebody asked earlier like about like whether like why some of these guys don't speak English, essentially, like if they're signing at 13. They're not really signing at 13. Like they agree to deals that young, but then they're kind of whisked away like in the Dominican Republic off with their trainers. And then when they start in the DSL, like it's an academy. So a lot of them do schooling of some kind and
That's Aaron
get
Santana's job.
and they get lessons. Right, exactly. That's what
Yeah.
she does. So, a lot of these guys, I mean, Brian Ramos like is speaking very well, and he didn't speak any English at all. Like when he started as a 17-year-old from Cuba, like there's a lot of these guys.
Yep. I don't know. We'll find out. I mean, I have to imagine that since they're in the process of building their academy, that they're probably trying to amass a staff to populate the positions that are going to need to be at this at said academy.
And this tells me that for 2027, if they have 2 DSL teams, I wouldn't be surprised. Like they're beefing up a staff. Like they have too many players for one team this year and not enough for 2. And honestly, they can't field 2. Their academy is like not big enough or modern enough to handle that. But I do think that, I mean, I haven't heard anything about this. Like I'm just thinking of it now, but based on some of the things that David Keller is saying, it would make sense that they would add a second team in the Dominican Summer League.
It would be really nice. I feel like obviously I feel like the White Sox have been kind of lagging behind in that international market, and having additional spots and additional beds to fill with players would be obviously ideal.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the issue is like you just need to sign a ton more pitchers, and they can be $10,000. Like that's fine, but you need people to pitch these games.
Yeah, and it's we see this year after year. It's not like they don't have a bunch of money left over at the end of the year.
Yeah, and the $10 million signings, or the $10,000 signings, they don't count against your pool, so it doesn't matter. So sign 50 of them, like it doesn't matter.
True. So I'm gonna go ahead and throw this out there. This week, the Winston-Salem Dash released news that there is going to be the Future Sox Showdown.
Oh yeah,
down in Winston-Salem, between the Kannapolis Cannonballers and the Winston-Salem Dash. That is on April 2nd, right before the minor league season starts. I will be down there. Jeff Cohen will be down there. More details to come, I suppose.
Yeah, it should be fun. It's a good time. They reached out. They kind of asked us if we were fine with them calling it this, and we're like, of course. Like, works for us. So yeah, it's pretty awesome. We'll announce as we get closer. I mean, you and I will probably still do the pod, but I probably won't be on site. But then, whole bunch of content from you and Jeff and everybody else that's there. Should be kind of cool. What do you think about that Wolf question? Can we make
That's a good question.
Tadahito Iguchi the official Pacific Rim liaison? It doesn't really matter because all those guys are going to sign with the Dodgers anyways.
I mean, between him and maybe we get Shingo Takatsu, as our pitching guy out there to help, smooth over some of these relations.
You can use Riku Nishida.
He's that guy's doing some really awesome stuff.
He does a lot of philanthropy stuff. Yes, he does.
He really does, and it's really cool. If you guys do not follow him on Twitter, or X, I would highly recommend it. You'll have to hit the translate tweet stuff on most of his tweets, but he does do some really cool stuff with trying to get guys scholarships over here in the States and getting guys moved over. It's pretty neat. So as my last topic of the night that I have, I wanted to talk about SoxFest.
Yeah.
James and I will be at SoxFest.
Yeah, come say hello if you see us.
Yeah, if you see us walking around Gen Pop, come and say hi.
Yeah, just come and hit me in the face or something. Like, yeah, it's fine. Like, yeah.
But so today there was a tweet that the White Sox put out, and basically detailed that the White Sox are going to be having bans, and it's something that's been talked about by some of the White Sox staffers in interviews and stuff like that, is that they're kind of trying to, at least it seems this way, like they're trying to make this more of like an entertainment thing, a little bit more like concert format, as opposed to the way that they've been doing it, the way that everybody does it for baseball, more or less, where you get some panels, you get you get a little bit of a show on stage to start things off, but then it's like autograph lines and all that stuff. This year, it's a much smaller format, and it seems like they're trying to change things up a little bit. They got a comedian and 2 bands scheduled. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like what you said. I just don't know that this is gonna be a thing that works. I feel like the people that loved these conventions are like the autograph seeker people, right? I'm not one of those people. I don't care about that. Yes, beef. Jesus. He's doing the sound. Yes. He was not asked. No, I don't know. I mean, to me, like I love the panels. I think it's cool. I like hearing the fan questions and how they answer. Like that part's fine. But I mean, like for me, like if you're gonna have Chris Getz and Paul Yanish and somebody else and take questions, like that's my type of thing. Or like, the Mike Shirley and maybe like Josh Barfield together or something. Like I used to go to the panel with, any panel that Getz did or like the scouting director did. Like I would go to those, right? That's the reason why I would go, for those sorts of things, and to meet some of you guys and just talk to White Sox fans and that sort of thing. Like if there's a bar, that's where I will be, like when these bands are playing. Like and I know like Len Casper is a musician, like he's in like Sonic 45 or whatever he has. Fine. It's just I don't really care that much.
I mean, it's kind of what I do for a living. So to me, I've had enough of mixing dad bands and stuff like that for the most part. So yeah, this is when there will be a mass exodus to the bar, I believe.
Do you think Len Casper's band sounds like Slayer? No.
No, I do not.
I know. I've heard it.
I think they sound like Jesse and the Rippers is my guess.
Oh, nice. Full house band. Yeah.
Yeah, and then and like I had mentioned earlier, there is a comedian as well. So, I mean, do we really need comedy at SoxFest? I mean, we saw I have no idea, but we watched this White Sox team last year. Nobody needs any comedy.
Yeah, no, it's yikes, not great.
Yes, Beef is in the comments. You and I will also be attending 108 night as well after the Saturday night. Beef can answer in the comments here whether there still are tickets available. I think there is, but I'm not 100% on that. He could answer.
Yeah, that'll be a good time too.
Yeah. Also, I've been the last couple of years in a row. It's fun.
You can see Scott Merkin in person, guys. Come on.
True. That as well. And, if you want to come and give White Sox Dave a stone cold stunner, you could do that too. He'll be there. So, You got anything else interesting this week?
Yeah. So, have you ever watched the Netflix 3-part documentary on the Red Sox 04?
I have not.
So, I thought it was interesting, and I'm not a huge I was in high school then. I remember some of this. So I remember loving the 04 team, right? And then it kind of went off the rails when Maglio got hurt and they had a bunch of injuries, and then obviously 05 came next, right? So this Red Sox documentary starts off where the end of Moneyball is basically, and Billy Beane takes the job, and then 48 hours later he basically says, I can't leave my kid, like, whatever, and goes back to Oakland. But he tells John Henry, like, just hire Theo, he's smarter than anybody else you're going to hire. So Theo Epstein takes over as a 28-year-old. They go through that first season where they lose to the Yankees, blah blah blah, right? The part that I found interesting that I totally forgot about, but now I remember, but I was in high school, so I remember this, when Boston acquired Alex Rodriguez in the off season of what, 03, it would have been winter 03 headed into 04. And they traded Manny Ramirez and John Lester for A-Rod, but the Players Association had to approve the deal because money was exchanging hands. In that deal, the White Sox were acquiring Nomar Garciaparra for Maglio Ordonez and Brandon McCarthy. And I was just like, oh man, like, because it was just, like, it's what, 20 years. So Jed and Theo are in this doc just like talking about it. Like, but thinking back on it, like, I remember watching Sports Center and they're like, we'll have resolution to this within 36 hours, but this is happening. And I guess just kind of thinking back on it, like Maglio got hurt that year and left as a free agent. Nomar left as a free. So I think it would have just been 1 year of Nomar, like, instead of Mags probably. But man, that was right in the heyday of like Trader Kenny, where you're just like trying to get stuff going like all the time. Like, what can we do? And that would have changed some stuff, man. Like A-Rod on Boston and Manny and Lester gone. Like, that would have been interesting. It was pretty good. It was a 3-part thing. Just most of it was just about those Red Sox teams and like the characters that are on it. But man, Theo Epstein made a lot of moves as a 28-year-old future Hall of Fame. He just like, talk about upsetting the apple cart. My goodness.
Yeah, and that would have done something for the White Sox as well, because they would have gotten something instead of nothing.
Yeah, and letting Mags walk, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
So
mean, but I think they probably would have let Nomar walk too. So I don't know how much it would have helped you, like, in 04.
possibly, yeah. I mean, but
And
if they would have gotten
Ozzie was the manager then, because he was 04 was his first season. Because then that's the year that they traded Esteban Loaiza for Contreras. Because I remember, like, Loaiza pitches out of the bullpen against Boston, like, in that ALCS.
I went back and was looking at a bunch of my old programs, probably about a year and a half ago or so, and I pulled out 3 different issues of the White Sox magazine, and all 3 of them I think had posters of Esteban Loaiza. Hooray!
Man, that year was so good though in 03. He was so good.
Yes, indeed.
Very, very, yeah.
Let's see here. I know we got a couple of questions here on the way out. Let me go ahead and
don't ask me the Bears one. I don't know.
Two Frank says, who out of the Rick Hahn Kenny acquired pitchers will be DFA'd first?
Oh boy, of the younger guys. I mean, in the Sox Machine article from today, it talks about how Nick Nastrini is gonna get a chance to go back to the rotation, and they kind of felt like there was some mechanical stuff.
Yep.
There was no mention of Jake Eater at all. So
was there any mention of our very own Dylan being the one who fixed Nick Nastrini?
Yeah, for like 2 games or something, right? Like,
it was very brief.
yeah, it was not great. I don't know. I guess I'll still say Nick Nastrini. Nick Nastrini will be the first one gone. I don't know that he's DFA'd though, because I think somebody would probably trade for him.
Oh yeah, I mean, then the Eater one, that's a tough one as well.
Yeah, because I want to see him out of the pen before you give up on him.
Yeah, I'd like to see him get some solid work with Banny before they launch him for sure. And him being in Charlotte is not the best place in the world for him,
but
obviously.
He's got to be there, yeah.
But I mean, that's the only place he can be. So Maybe Zaleski can sit there and work specifically with him. Maybe they can figure it out. I don't know. We'll see. I always saw the promise there. It's just seeing the consistency and the results that we haven't seen.
Yeah.
Let me see here. I thought there was another one, but maybe not. Nope, that's about it. But I will say this, Doug, I second not wanting to hear about Michigan at all.
Oh, he'll bring it up.
Oh, that guy is
the Holy Land. He will definitely bring it up.
I mute him in the off season because I don't need to hear all that nonsense.
Yeah.
Let's see here.
Prison staff. Jesus.
Yes, DJ
Vince,
Snelten.
that's not nice. Yeah, we talked about DJ Snelten earlier. He was.
Yeah, he's prime athletics is where
he throws really hard. He was a workout guy. He'll be at one of the affiliates most likely.
Yeah. So you good?
All good.
Sweet. So you have been watching / listening to the Future Sox podcast. If you're listening to this in podcast form, know that you can find us every Sunday night at 8 p.m. on YouTube and the Purple app. You can also find this podcast along with all of our written content at FutureSox.net, like James' International Market preview and
we have the dev staff up there too. Dylan wrote.
Yes. So. Dylan just dropped the dev staff article today. So go ahead and check that out. If you are looking for White Sox prospect highlights, you can find them on our X at Future Sox and now also here on our YouTube channel. If you love the content and want to support us here at Future Sox, there is a link to our Patreon in our channel description and at FutureSox.net. To answer the earlier question, we are starting to put more content on that Patreon, so please take a look. You can also toss up a super chat on our YouTube stream. Also, don't forget to like this stream and subscribe with notifications so you can help us out with the algorithms. My name is Ian Eskridge at Daily White Sox, and he is James Fox at JamesFox917. We should appreciate all of you guys. Thanks for coming and hanging out in the chat. Thanks for asking questions. You guys drive this thing. We appreciate it. Have a great night, and we will talk to you soon. Thanks.